about what I made of Vince's appearance during the debate with Marco?
Yeah, go right ahead.
The first thing that really stood out to me was the fact that Vince said the most important part of the whole interview was when Vince said that he believed the MLM failure rate to be between 70 and 80% across the industry. Now, this is a man who is meant to be helping people who want to start a home-based business. And the most common form of a home-based business is a multi-level marketing company. And he doesn't even know what their failure rates are. I mean, I find that absolutely extraordinary. If you are truly an expert on home-based businesses, if you're the king of them, the guru, then you should know these sort of statistics and these facts and data points back to front. And Vince has got absolutely no idea at all. Now, it's very, very well documented that across the entire industry, there's a 99 point something, between 95 to 99.5 to 99.8. And it's been that way since the beginning. And Vince just has no idea. And then when he was confronted with these facts, he then said, and I think this really sums Vince up, as long as I'm making money, I don't care. Just think about that. A man who is on the internet telling people that he is the guru and he is here to help you. If you're wanting to start a home-based business, listen to me, I can help you. Saying that he does not care if over 99% are losing as long as he is making money. That to me sums up the man.
I have to say, I think you're taking a couple things out of context there, Glenn. One is he did say, as long as I'm making money, I don't care about anybody else. But he was saying that in the context of MLM, where he was doing a lot of selling, and he noticed that a lot of other people were doing a lot of recruiting, and he didn't really care that they were losing as long as he was winning, which was true. They were losing money, and he was making because he was doing a lot of retailing, and so it's not quite. And he also said, by the way, when you talk about the fact that he I just lost my train of thought there. It was another related aspect of what you were just talking about. It'll come back to me, but go ahead. But I just wanted to point that out, that was in relation to him being an MLM, and he was doing a lot of selling, and most of the other people were doing a lot of recruiting, and therefore they were losing a lot of money. Now it just came back to me. So when he said 70 or 80%, and Marco said, no, I've got evidence that it's 99.7 or whatever the number is. He said, well, I'd like to look at that. He was open to looking at that information. He didn't just shut it down. He just wasn't aware of it. And he says, I'm open-minded. I'll look at it. Send me the information you have, and I'll look at it. Now, I happen to not agree with that statistic, but we've gone over that before. But anyway, I just wanted to sort of point that out because it's a little... The context is important to me. Anyway, that's my opinion of those statements. Go right ahead.
But there's a couple of parts to this. The first part is the fact that for years he's been giving people as the business king, the home business king, advice on MLMs. Now, you can't give the right advice if you don't know what the sticks are, if you don't know what the likelihood of success is. If somebody was a franchise king, for example, and I was to go to him and say, what do you think of me buying a McDonald's franchise compared to a Subway franchise? He would tell me, here are the statistics. This percentage of McDonald's succeed. This percentage of Subways succeed. This is the startup cost. These are the ongoing costs. He would know all the data back to front, and he would then give me all the information I would need to make the best possible decision. Now, if a young person went to Vince, or even an old person went to Vince and asked him, what do you think of the MLM industry? Because he doesn't know there's a 99 point something failure rate, he is not able to answer the question correctly. He thinks there's a 70 or 80% chance, and he blames that on the distributors doing the wrong thing, the distributors ruining it with, by only focusing on recruiting, not And this, I think a second point to that is, it's amazing to me that we talk about MLM when it's done right. I'll put it another way. If you have a look at the history of MLMs, the only people that have become millionaires from it, multi-millionaires, are people like Dexter Yeager, who have done two things: created a massive, massive downline and started a tool scam. Now, when Vince was doing it, he was doing it the wrong way to become rich, because he wasn't working on a tool scam and he wasn't working on building a huge downline. He was instead going to trade shows and selling products for a commission, a very, very small commission. Now, nobody has ever gotten rich, let alone built what he says on his page, building an empire from home by selling MLM products for a small commission. So he was going about building his empire the wrong way. You can argue that he was doing MLMs in a more moral fashion. It's more moral to sell products than to recruit people and sell the dream nonstop. But to become a multi-millionaire like Dexter Yeager, or just to get Dexter Yeager, but just to earn a high wage, the way he was doing it was wrong, and that's why he stopped doing it and went back to other jobs like his telemarketing jobs and his other sales jobs. But point in time, has Vince ever built an empire? It is just, this guy is a fake guru. I can't think of a better example of a fake guru than this man, really. Building empires from the comfort of your own home. Now, any person that believes that is in trouble. What do you guys make of that?
Well, I think, put aside the fact that he calls himself a home business king, to me, if you're doing retail sales, you're doing MLM the right way. Now, you don't have to do as many sales as Vince was doing. You can balance the recruiting and the selling between you and your downline, and that's really the way, in my view, MLM was meant to be. He went and did more retail sales. That's good for him. I'm not against retail sales, and I wouldn't compare what he did with retail sales to Dexter Yeager, because Dexter Yeager was a complete fraud. He made tons of money, just like all the other big kingpins do in Amway, but they make most of it from the tools, and then the other part of it, the much smaller part, the Amway part, is mostly their downline distributor purchases, which is an illegal pyramid. And so in both cases, most of their money, whether it's the tools or Amway, is illegal money. And the FTC hasn't gone after them, which is very disappointing. But I'm not surprised, given the Neora decision and how inept the FTC obviously is, and their so-called experts like Stacey Bosley. It's not a surprise that they're not going after Amway now that I reflect on the Neora lawsuit. But I can't say that he was doing it wrong just because he was doing it legitimately.
So he was doing it in a way that nobody has ever built an empire, which is what he's talking about on his channel. Nobody has ever built an empire doing it the way that he was doing it. Nobody has ever become rich doing it the way that he was doing it. So from the standpoint of, if you wanted to become rich, which is why he was doing it, he was all about making money. And he said himself, he doesn't care if everyone else loses as long as he wins. He was doing it the wrong way, because he clearly didn't understand how it worked. He thought that he could become rich from MLMs by selling these products and getting commission on them. That's he was highly misguided. You can argue that.
I don't think he ever said that, though, Glenn. I don't think he ever said, I'm going to become rich on retail sales. He said, I think they asked him, and he said he made the maximum of $20,000 a year through MLM retail sales. But he also, at the same time, he said he also was doing direct sales, and he had a job. So he had three sources of income. MLM was one of the three. He was making, again, I don't disbelieve him. I'm just saying it's his claim. I can't prove it. But he was making most of his $20,000 a year from retail sales, as well as his other direct sales company and his job. So
Okay,
to me,
fantastic.
that's a hustler.
So he's a very good salesperson. Well, let's give credit where credit is due. He's a very good salesperson. He's very good at working jobs. So where does this building empires nonsense come from? Where does this being the home business king, being able to get onto YouTube and advise people on how to become a business person, an entrepreneur, how to have your own home business? He's got no record, no history of it. All he talks about is telemarketing, selling products in an MLM for a small commission, and having sales jobs. Where's all this, you know?
It's what I call fluff, right? That's advertising fluff. You puff yourself up, you make yourself really like you're a guru, and you expect people to flock towards you, and it's salesmanship. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It certainly is not as big as Jaeger, but Jaeger was really doing it wrong because he was doing it illegally, both the tool scam and the lack of retail sales. And this guy was doing legitimate retail sales. How can you say, that he wasn't doing it wrong? It doesn't make any sense.
Dexter Jaeger had more business sense than what Vince does. Dexter Jaeger used to rent out. Dexter Jaeger was a risk taker. He invested money in a tape machine, very expensive at the time. He invested money in renting halls, taking risk. He was a risk taker. He was a genuine entrepreneur. If you look up,
he was a scam artist, Glenn. Glenn, he was not an entrepreneur. He was a scam artist. All right, he was a scam artist. Dexter Jaeger did not have better business sense. He had better business scam sense. He did not have better business sense. There's no way you can say that, because when you're running a scam, it's not a business; it's a scam, or at least it's a business scam. It does have elements of being a business, but it's a scam. And there's no way you can compare Jaeger to Vince, because Vince was actually doing things legally, making a little bit of money. Jaeger was making a lot of money, but doing it completely illegally. So I don't think there's any purpose in comparing how much money they were making, because one of them was a scammer and the other one was doing legitimate retail sales. So I don't get that argument.
To me, Vince is a poor man's version of Dexter Jaeger. He would love to be like Dexter Jaeger, but he doesn't speak as well. Dexter Jaeger was an incredibly good public speaker. He'd get up on that stage in front of stadium people, and he was like a preacher. He had the crowd. They were just in rap. They couldn't. The way that people would react to Dexter Jaeger is the same way that a teenager would react to their the rock star who's their idol. They would get that excited. He would get up there and he would preach just like a preacher at church. But the selling of the tapes, it was misleading. It was dishonest. I don't think that was an illegal business. It was. You could maybe argue it was misleading. It was a scam, but I think legally that was a legal business. The Amway side of it was, a scam, and it should have been shut down. But yeah, to me, this guy is just a very, very poor imitation of Dexter Jaeger. Jaeger at least he wasn't lying or bluffing about creating an empire. This guy is lying. There is no empire with this guy. Nonsense. There was a part where he was talking to Marco in the interview where he talked about buying a trailer and living in a trailer. He's got 1 minute he's talking about living in a trailer, the next minute he's talking about building an empire. I can help you build an empire. It's just bizarre, really. And I feel really, really sorry for. I know that he's got 3.58k subs. I know that there's a high percentage of them are very young kids, 18 to 21, very ambitious, but also very naive. And they're taking this guy on as gospel, and they're listening to what he's saying, and he's given them nothing. He's given them no useful advice, business advice, life advice. He's scamming them. He's trying, it's really, really bad.
Well, which MLMs do you think Vince supports?
Well, he doesn't support any of them, but he doesn't know enough about them to be on there as the home business king. The majority, I don't know what the percentages are, but of all home businesses, MLM is the most common form of home business. So if you're going to be educating people on home businesses, you must know the most common type of them back to front. It would be like if you were a franchising expert who was going around educating people on franchises and not knowing what McDonald's was. Well, you need to know, if you're going to educate people on franchises, you must know all the franchises back to front. You must know the laws back to front. You must know the data and how many succeed and how many fail back to front. And if you're going to be a home business educator, you need to know about home businesses. And this guy doesn't know about them.
Well, you're right. You're right. Vince did say to Marco, I don't recommend any MLMs today. In the past, he said some of them were pretty good. He made some money at them, but he said today, I don't recommend any MLMs. So I'm assuming, because of that statement, if somebody approaches him for a home-based business, he's not going to be promoting an MLM. He's going to be promoting a non-MLM home-based business, because there's a lot of non-MLM home-based businesses out there. You can be a sole proprietor. You can have a one-person operation making all kinds of stuff. I don't know, jewelry, carvings, whatever. You can have a small company. You can have a company that starts out with just one person and it grows over time to be multiple people, or stays with one person. I mean, there's all kinds of varieties of home-based businesses that are not MLM. So, but Peter, I wanted to get your input on all this discussion too, because this is what you do too, Peter. And I assume It's not all MLMs when you're giving advice to home-based business people who actually I consider you the guru, much more so than Vince. Go ahead, Peter.
So let me say this about Vince. I don't know anything about Vince's background. He might run a successful gym. That's what he basically says, so let's give him that. I do know that what came out of his mouth on the video leads us to believe he's really new, somewhat naive, and probably will look back at that video several years from now and say, well, that was kind of embarrassing. I said some stuff I probably would retract. So let's use as an example, subscribers. To think that because Marco's number next to his YouTube channel says 88.3 thousand subscribers gives him any level of credibility would be a mistake. If you know anything about the way YouTube does subscribers, if you knew about the fraud in YouTube subscribers, if you knew that Marco's 20,000 bump came from a Primerica video that was taken down because the company said it was no good, you probably realize he got caught up in the benefits of an algorithm. Some people subscribed, and unfortunately, when they never listen again, because they're one-timers, the number doesn't go down.
Sorry, Cuddy, that video is still on YouTube on multiple channels, including mine. It's been re-uploaded.
Right.
None of them have been removed, so it's still there.
Well, right, and let's take a look at that, the subscribers on those channels, to prove my point. If you go look at that video, which would have been wonderful, right, those people's subscribers probably should have gone up by hundreds of thousands collectively over time. I bet you they have not. So if you go really drill down, and for those people that are listening in, go drill down on Marco's 88,000 subscribers. You can actually see many of them and who they are. You'll see that they have one video, maybe uploaded ever. Some of them, and many of them, subscribed in like 10 years ago. So they're fraudulent accounts on Marco's channel. So I won't say that Marco did that. I don't think he's smart enough to do that. But the algorithms sometimes do that. So you'll see that the 88,000 is a false number. Anybody using it for credibility would be making a very vast mistake. And you can go through the research, and we could have a whole debate doing a web meeting, and I could show you, because this is the stuff that I study. So the stuff that Vince has, whether it's a big number, small number, or even that you have is a big number or a small number, is kind of irrelevant if you're making everything based on that. There's people that have millions of subscribers. I'm not going to mention who they are because they don't need the hate mail directed towards them. And they could have 1 million subscribers, and they get hundreds or barely thousands of views when they do a video. It's because of lots of different reasons. So, number one, Vince is a rookie when it comes to the Internet and YouTube and the statistics. Number two, I'm going to say this about Vince. For whatever reason, he thinks if his mouth is open and he's moving his lips, he's an expert on whatever he's talking about. That is obviously wrong, because he said, and this is hysterical, and I hope that you guys bring this up. Scott mentioned about this, and I said, oh, go look at this. And he's talking about Scott Johnson, and he's bringing up Glenn's